Hello, everybody, and welcome to Web and Beyond Live for June 13th, 2022. I'm Ray Sidney Smith. I'm president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services, which provides affordable web and WordPress hosting, domain name registration, and other web related services, primarily for small business. Web and Beyond Live is our weekly show about topical and timely small business, digital marketing, and related issues. So, welcome to those of you who are watching live or the replay and of course listening to the podcast. Feel free to ask questions either in the chat or in the comment section. You can also feel free to tweet at me at W3 Consulting. That's the number three, so W3 Consulting on Twitter. I love Twitter, so you can always find me there. And this is a special episode today because we are doing our What's New at Google episode. And so once a month, we're going to be just basically rounding up all of the various Google news that is coming out of Google Workspace and the related products. Today is really focused on Google Workspace, but in general, each month I'm going to kind of collect and collate all of the various different stories that kind of cover Google since there's so much in that space. So let's get right into the Google stories. And so let me bring up my Google stories here on screen for you and we'll walk through these one by one. And so, first and foremost, is just a quick note about the security features that have been added to the Google Workspace environment. So, if you don't know, Virus Total is a feature that's it's a whole platform by itself, but the feature itself is connected to Google Workspace so that you, as an admin of your Google Workspace, you're able to see reports when things that are being downloaded or accessed by Google Workspace have any kind of malicious code associated with them. And generally, Google will block those things, but a user is able to override those and still download those, even if it's a false positive or those kinds of things. So, you as a Google Workspace administrator, presumably if you're the owner of the company, you're also the administrator, but if you're managing a Google Workspace instance, you still want to know, what's going on with regard to any kinds of malicious software or attacks or those kinds of things. Well, this is the alert center that helps you manage that and see what's going on. Before, all admins basically got notifications of this. Now, super admins have the ability to toggle on or off the ability for those virus total reports to go to you. So it's just kind of helpful if people were being over notified or people who don't have purview over that are getting access to those things. Now you can actually go ahead and get rid of them. Next up is just a quick note. So this is actually about the update to the third-party DevOps integrations for Google Chat, and that sounds like gobbledygook to some of you, most likely. My point for bringing it up is that you can actually connect to Google Chat, which think of Google Chat as basically the Microsoft Teams chat or Slack. It's basically that within Google Workspace. So if you're not using Google Chat within Google Workspace, you don't need Slack. You don't need another chat tool. It's all built. It's kind of caked right into Google Workspace, and I'm really excited about this just generally. Because they've updated a whole bunch of things across the board. But the most important thing that I wanted to just bring to people's attention is that you can connect other tools to Google Chat. You can integrate, say, Asana or Trello or other tools into the Google Chat interface. I use something called Calendar Hero, which allows me to see my upcoming calendar events. It just shoots me a quick little message inside of Google Chat. And we also use Asana. And so Asana actually has the ability for me to just put /create_task and then write a task, and it creates a task for me inside of Asana. And I don't have to leave Google Chat in order to be able to do that. So if I'm right there in the interface, I can go ahead and do that directly from / and then typing a command. So it's a little geeky, but it's very helpful if you do integrate these tools and you are utilizing Google Chat most effectively. So I just wanted to bring that to folks' attention. Next up is that when you're using companion mode, and for those who don't know, companion mode is the ability for you to be inside of, say, a Google Doc or something like that, and you are inside of a Google Meet, that is, and you are attempting to show a document or something like that on screen, you're now able to turn your camera on and share your video with everyone else while you are in that companion mode. So just helpful for folks to kind of keep up to date in terms of not keep up to date, but just kind of keep more humane and personalized when you're in the in meetings and that kind of thing. So companion mode is see this article here. Companion mode is where you are in the same room utilizing a piece of connected technology. So maybe you have a you know Nest or some other kind of device in the room for a hybrid meeting. You can now share your video feed in and along that particular item. So you might be sharing documents and that kind of thing in the meeting, and your video would be not available. Now it is. So just kind of helpful for those of you who are utilizing the hardware infrastructure with Google Meets. Next, Google is actually giving us more ability to be able to search for things inside of Google Meet. So when you're inside of Google Meet, you can search your Google Drive content. So they're noting here you can search for meeting recordings, chat transcripts, attendance reports, polls or questions and answer reports, meeting transcripts, and then meeting notes that you created inside of Google Calendar. So really great that you can now search your My Drive and your meeting recordings content a little bit more deeply. Next up is just a couple of other items. One is that Google is now putting there's a couple more Google Chat things in here as well that we'll get to. But one of the interesting things is that you'll now have an idle status in Google Chat. So before, you could change your status and whatnot, and it wouldn't necessarily show in the Android application or the iOS application. Now you'll be able to see a little idle status notification in Google Chat on web and chat in Gmail. So it's good to see that people aren't available for you to be able to chat with them. So if you send a message, you're not expecting them to chat back to you. There was something else also in here. We'll get to that later. Okay, good. Yeah, so we covered all these items. All right. So this is really interesting. So back on Google Meet, Google has been working to kind of streamline their video meeting products. And so they have Google Duo, which has been really on the consumer side, a cross-platform video calling service. And you probably have used it if you are in the Google ecosystem to make a video phone call with your friends or family. Well, not only are you capable of calling up to 32 people in a group call, and you can do all kinds of fun effects on those devices. It works across, your desktop, your mobile, tablet, that kind of thing. Now they are trying to kind of integrate Google Duo with Google Meet. So in essence, eventually Google Duo is going to go away and become something like Google Meet Duo or something like that. And you're going to see the features bleed into each other. Google Meet's going to get some features from Google Duo. Google Duo is going to get some Google Meet love, and they're going to kind of merge over time. They're not going to be the same application as I understand it, but they are going to get more kind of integration in a lot of ways. So just kind of keep your wits about you, because it's not you. The change is real as Google Duo especially starts to change and morph over time. But I think Google's just trying to clean up house and bring some of these technologies into the same space so that they have less resources being given to any one given project. All right, there was something in here that I wanted to point out, and I'm not quite sure whether it's already in here. I'm just going to check here. No, these are all in my notes here. Okay, wonderful. So first and foremost, it used to be that space managers couldn't delete messages in Google Chat, and so now you are able to go ahead and do that. So if you're the manager of a space, and if you don't know what a space is, inside of Google Workspace, you are, say, in the Google Gmail interface, or you're in the email interface. On your left-hand side panel, you're going to now see a Spaces section, and inside of Spaces, you can create what are called spaces, and it is what it sounds like. It's a space for you to be able to put chat, files, and tasks in a workspace. And so inside of that workspace, you're able to, say, include one or multiple team members, and you can also include outside folks. So you can invite other members of a particular project to that particular space. And you were not able to before delete messages from other users in those spaces when you were inside of a thread. now you're able to go ahead and do that. So really handy. I've been actually using it most recently, and I've been pretty pleased with the space's management capabilities. You're capable of tracking tasks right inside of a space. Threaded conversations are really, really helpful. I'd really like to name the threaded conversations, but you know, that's on Google to fix. But the idea here that you can have this working kind of stream of within your Gmail interface is really, really, really handy because you're right there. You're doing the work right in line with the tasks and everything else that's going on in that interface. Okay, next up is that Google Chat is going to be providing, just like in Gmail, when they think that something might be phishing or that you're communicating with someone that's an external party, they kind of prompt you with these yellow and red notices, especially if they think that there's a malicious intent to that particular link. Well, now, outside of Gmail and Google Drive, Google Chat is going to start showing these same suspicious notices and giving you that prompting of that notification. And again, this is all coming from VirusTotal, which I talked about at the beginning. So these reports that you would receive from VirusTotal are basically when users, instead of clicking block, click on accept anyway. Those are the kinds of data that will show up in those reports, so you can know, okay, well, if there was a phishing attack or if there was malware that was now reported on a particular machine or our user's account, you can start to do the forensics to figure out where they entered and why. All right, next up is that you can now add personal tasks from Google Chat, and this is just really, really great. So in Google Chat, you can now create a message. You're chatting along with folks, and in that personal message, you can now go ahead and say, "Oh, this is something that I actually need to do." And so from Google Chat, this is not like you're not in a space. You can now grab that particular item and add it to your tasks. And Google Tasks, again, lives inside of the Gmail interface for the most part. There is a separate mobile application, so you can install the mobile app and use that as well. Google Chat is available within the Gmail interface, but the tasks can then be excised from Gmail, Google Chat, and be pulled into the Gmail interface and the Google Calendar interface as well. So you can go ahead and say, I want to do this at this particular time, and it'll appear in Google Calendar. So very, very helpful to continue to tie together those pieces of task management from the various points in which you would need to capture them: calendar, email, chat, or otherwise. All right. Next is that Google Docs has been really leveling up their capabilities of managing tables and utilizing tables within the document itself. And so in this particular case, they have added new table templates and some new drop down chips. Drop down chips are basically those pill shaped items that you will start seeing appear. They kind of have a grayed out background, and so they call them chips, but they're those pill-shaped buttons in essence. And when you click on them, they either are auto updating information or they're going to give you a disclosure arrow that will drop down and give you more information to select from in that drop down menu. In this particular case, the two default drop down options are going to be project status, which gives you not started, blocked, in progress, and complete options, and then review status. And review status has the same drop down selections. Not the same one, but the same concept of drop down selections. And those options are not started, in progress, under review, and then approved. Both would make sense for their appropriate items, right? A project status, you would want to know what status a particular project was in, and then in review status, that would be for a document that needs to be reviewed and approved, and you would then know to be able to do that. You can of course customize these and change them to your needs. You can also change colors so that you can set different colors to these things, and so now you're able to use some common workflows. These table templates for content tracker. Say you're doing some digital marketing content tracking inside of the document. You can now do that directly here. You could do that for project assets. You could do that for review tracker, and you can do that for product roadmap. There are several others within the system I'm sure that Google has in the works, but it's really helpful to be able to kind of manage the tables directly inside the document without having to leave Google Docs in order to do that. So I think it's a great productivity boost. Next up in Google Docs is that you now have the ability to take action on multiple text selections. So in essence, you can select multiple selections of text throughout a document that are non-contiguous, right? So you can select the heading in one document, you can select text in the paragraph of another document, and now you can go up to the toolbar or use the keyboard shortcut and change those things all at once. Which again, uh, it was one of those things where I thought, why wasn't this already in there? I was a little bit shocked that this didn't already exist, but I'm really glad that they've brought it to us now. And so you're capable of applying formatting, but you're also capable of deleting, copying, and pasting as well. So you literally like select different non-contiguous parts of a document, copy, and then go paste it elsewhere, which can be really, really useful if you need to be able to select the first, third, and fifth sentences of a document, or the first, third, and fifth bullets of a document, and copy them down to another section. You can now do that really quickly and easily. All right, making our way along. This one is not the greatest of news, but Google has been over time changing its storage policies for all across Google Workspace. And so, just so you know, most recently, they basically made an announcement that starting May 2nd, any files you're adding to your system are going to count towards storage. I mean, there's very, very few documents that are going to not count against storage, but they wanted to say that if you're creating new Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Drawings, Google Forms, or Jamboard files, all of them count toward storage. Anything that you created before that won't count against your storage, but anything going forward in terms of Google document or Google created files, all of them are going to count toward storage going forward as of May 2nd. Okay. So just understand that you should be paying attention to how much storage you have if you're in an account that has storage limits. So those are folks who are underneath the Google Workspace Business Plus accounts. All right. Next is that Google Workspace is now giving you the ability to have sub organizational units, right? So organizational units are kind of groups that you can create within an organization, right? So you can create, say, accounting or finance or otherwise legal. And within the organization, this is really for much larger sized organizations, but within them, you can now create shared drives for those specific organizations. So say you want to only allow human resources to have access to particular shared drives, you can create a shared drive and only share it with the human resources sub-organizational unit. So helpful to be able to do that. This one is really, really great. In Google Tasks, you can now set an end date, like an end option basically for recurring tasks. Before you couldn't do that without some baling wire and duct tape and some manual process. Now you're able to say, I want a task to repeat and I want it to end never on a certain date or after X number of occurrences, very akin to how it's always been for repeating events in Google Calendar. So they've just added the same features for Google Calendar in terms of repeating events to recurring tasks. Good on Google. Next is that if you're in Google Calendar and Google Workspace, you can share where you're working from. So people know whether you're working from home or you're working from one particular office location or another. Now inside of Google Calendar, they'll show a better kind of view for where your working location is from within Google Calendar. This is going to turn on by default for everyone and roll out. It's already rolled out. I mean, it's been rolled out for several weeks now, so you should already see this, and you can see it right across the top of your calendar screen, say in weekly view. You'll see that home office or otherwise. And you'll be able to change it, from the default that you've set it for very easily. Next is that if you've started to use the book appointments feature within Google Calendar, you can now require an email verification for being able to do that. So basically, people have to validate their email address by using a PIN code to complete the booking. So they either sign in to a Google account or they'll receive an email, put in a PIN, and then they'll be able to book in your appointment. And that's just so that you don't get a bunch of spam items being added to a book appointment screen, especially if that book appointment link is public. So if you put it on your website or something like that, you don't want people to be putting those in there. Next to last, our penultimate update is that you'll now be able to migrate your classic sites before December 1st, 2022. So you won't be able to edit the classic Google sites after December 1st, 2022, right? So they move that back by 6 months or forward by 6 months. Can't really tell which that is, but basically from June to December. So you have more time, 6 months more. And then starting on January 1st of next year, you will now no longer be able to view the classic sites unless you convert them to new Google sites. Google's just pushing us forward and using the new Google sites, which makes a lot of sense. It's really clean, very easy, and then you'll be able to use all of the new sites functionalities from those classic sites once they've been converted. So if you're using Google Sites in any way, shape, or form, convert them all over and go ahead and get those converted. And last but not least, in the Google Sites space, again, in new Google Sites, you can now import a custom theme from one Google site to another. Okay, these are only in the new Google Sites space, but you can now import a custom theme. So if you created a custom theme for one site, you can now pull over all of those theme elements to the new one. So really, really helpful there. All right. And so with that, that brings us to the end of all of the various updates that I had for you for the Google Workspace or what's new at Google episode today. Next week, we'll be back with our normal digital marketing updates, and I will be happy to cover those. Just a couple of quick announcements. One is that we have our next webinar, which I believe is July 7th. So just under a month from now, will be our intro to Google Analytics 4. If you don't know what Google Analytics 4 is, it's the new version of Google Analytics. And Google, again, just like with the Google Sites, they're pushing people forward. You've got, just about 6 to 9 months before all of these, folks are going to be jumping on the bandwagon to tell you you need to do all of these things with Google Analytics. But before all of that craziness happens, I wanted to just get everyone aware of what Google Analytics 4 is, how it's different from Universal Analytics, the prior version. And then we're going to do another webinar after that, which will cover how to migrate from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4 so that everybody can go ahead and make the transition, do it before there's any craziness, and you can go ahead and get things kind of stabilized because Google Analytics 4 is very different from Universal Analytics, and so some folks might be confused when they look at the new interface. There's all new codes that you have to interact with any web properties, whether that be your website, mobile applications, anything that you integrate with Google Analytics. You can integrate it with a whole bunch of things, but those services need to update in order to be able to make that all happen. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page and is able to make that transition easily. If you're not already, feel free to join us over in Web and Beyond community. That's where I post all of our events. And so, you can always register for the events outside of the community, but it's just easier if you're inside the community because then we post the events. You can RSVP from within there and you're good to go. So if you go to www.webandbeyond.community, you can go ahead and register and join us in the community. And of course, you are welcome, Robin, for all of the updates. And so the I think that's it. That brings us to the end of our time together this week. If you enjoyed the live stream, feel free to click the thumbs up icon. Thanks for doing that. And if you have a question, again, leave a comment. You can also tweet or message us at W3 Consulting on Twitter. You can join us most Mondays, most Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we'll note if it's another time on all the social channels that we'll be doing it a different time. So like upcoming July 4th, we're going to push that off by a day because the holiday is coming up for Independence Day. So we're going to move it around as we need to, and if there's technical issues or whatever, we'll just move it to a different day. But typically we're here at Mondays at 11 a.m. But I want to thank you all for spending this Web and Beyond live with me. I'm Ray Sidney Smith on behalf of W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services. Have a great week ahead, marketing and managing your small business on the Web and Beyond. Take care, everybody.